Hello, so what I've got here is a Squier Stratocaster that's in need of some attention. This was brought to me by my friend who's an amp tech. His neighbour gave it to him to replace that pot there, which he's already done, but while he had it, the bloke asked him about setups, so he's tagged me in to deal with that aspect. There's a few issues with it. The bridge is pulling up when it's up to pitch. It should be like that, so I'll have to tighten the springs in the back to get that sorted. The action is also really high. Which seems to be the result of this neck kind of going upwards out of the body at an angle there. So I can take that out, make sure it's seated correctly, and also put a shim in there if I need to. Also, it looks like these saddles have been lowered a bit to try and compensate for that, but hopefully once the truss rod and everything's adjusted and the neck's set correctly, that should work properly. The fretboard's kind of dry, but the frets themselves are in decent nick. So I'll just clean that up and make it more comfortable. It doesn't really need any extensive work done on it. And then the machine heads just need a little bit of sort of tightening. They're a little bit sort of wiggly. Not the mechanism itself, just where it's screwed down onto the headstock. So yeah, it should be fairly straightforward, I reckon. I'll just have a quick go on it before I start to see how it feels now, so I can get an idea of a comparison. Oh, bloody hell. There we go. Okay. So there it is at the moment. It works okay, everything's sorted now. We did put a lower resistance volume pot in, because that will help sort of calm down the shrill nature of these kind of lower end pickups. Yeah, the action's really high up in the air. The intonation's all wrong, but obviously the action is the main thing really, and once that's fixed, this will all need to be adjusted anyway, so that'll just get done really. The back of the neck has got some sort of dings and scratches on it, which I'll try and sort of buff out a little bit. I mean, we're not doing a full restoration or anything, but should be able to get it a bit nicer. Yeah, it should be relatively straightforward, so I think I'm just going to get on with it and do like a montage. I don't know how well this is showing up on there, but there's two holes here, and that one's huge as well. So I don't know whether that's from the factory or someone's had a go on this before. But what I have discovered is that these screws are actually like engaging with the body, and they shouldn't be. They should just pass straight through that and only screw into the neck. So I'll drill these holes out a little bit more. lower the tone. So this action's loads better now, and the neck is seated in the body a lot more nicely. There's potentially room to put another shim in to get a little bit more back angle on it, but I'll see how I go and keep tweaking the setup, make sure that it's all right. Let's see how we go. Well, yeah, that's turned out okay, I think. Obviously, there's still a bit of tweaking left to do, but in terms of like fixing it and, you know, getting it back to how it should be, we're pretty much there. It's a high fret in here somewhere, because when you bend the string up it hits, I think it's that one. So if I get my fret rocker, I think, yeah, that fret's high. You know, we're not down to do a full fret job, but I think I can spot level that one like as part of the setup, because then I can get this string down, because these two top strings are higher than the rest of them now, especially this one here. It's kind of, that's where I've had to set it to get it out of the way of the fret. I don't know how well it shows up on there, but it's sort of visibly higher than these two. You can look at the saddle itself, it's sitting above those two, and it should be more in line with them. And it's because when you bend these notes here, these strings were choking out on that. So you'd bend this note, but instead of getting that nice note, it hits this fret here, because that one's too high. Because annoyingly, you know, there isn't any fret buzz when you play it. It's just when you bend it, then it hits the other one here. So yeah, I'm going to try and bring that fret down a little bit to improve the action on these top strings. Okay, so because I'm just spot leveling this fret, I'm not going to completely take the strings off. It could probably benefit from a fret level overall, but obviously that runs into more work and expense then, you know, and it's just here for a setup. So I might try tapping it first, actually. If that doesn't change it, it's probably not anything to do with how it's seated. That actually improved it a great deal. I'm going to string it back up and see if that works. Okay, let's lower these again. Okay. Yeah, that's helped. There. Okay. Right, because that's worked, what I'm going to try now is putting another shim in the neck, because I'm starting to wonder if the neck pocket actually is sort of coming up out at an angle. Okay, obviously now there's another shim in there, the neck's higher, so the bridge is going to have to come up. But because I've sorted out that fret, hopefully, the action should still be pretty good. You can see it's now sitting much sort of more square in the body. There's the bridge over there. I've put the E string up to sort of get a test of where it should go, and it seems pretty good. So I'll just raise them all a sort of approximate amount to start with, and then see how the radius looks. So now I've got those extra shims in there, this neck is sitting much more parallel to the body, and the action is much better now that I've tapped that fret down. Obviously with the fret level you could probably get it even lower than that, but it's sort of fine where it is. It's about in the regions of where a normal guitar action should be. And the bridge is up higher to compensate for it, obviously, but the sort of fringe benefit of that is that those little adjustment screws aren't sticking out of the top anymore. They're kind of down inside, so when you're like palm muting and stuff, you don't scratch your hand on it. So I've been playing around with this for a while now with the two shims in there. The saddles are like way higher than they normally are on a Strat, but I think that's to do with this neck pocket being slightly too shallow at the front end. So the two shims are getting it like flat and level, and the action above the fretboard is like where you want it to be normally. So like relatively it sort of works and it's in tune now, and everything, you know, everything's set up properly, and you can do the bends here. There's a little bit there, but I don't want to go raising the action too high because then it will start being weird to play. Now I could bring it up a little bit. Well, I've said this once before, but it bears repeating now. The way I like to take off these string ends is just by snapping them off. So once you're all tuned up and all the strings are nicely stretched in, you're confident you're not going to need to take them off again. If you just bend them backwards and forwards, then eventually it just snaps off and it's right flush against there. So you don't get those little spikes that stick out like when you clip them off. But also, they don't pop out even though you'd think they would. This is perfectly stable. I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never had a string pop out. So make of that what you will. It was shown to me by my brother, and I don't know whether he still does it or not, but he showed me anyway. So now I do it just as standard. So yeah, you just kind of bend it back and forth a couple of times on the post, and then eventually it snaps off right on the machine head. So there's nothing sticking out, and it's really tidy. Okay, so I think I've got the action pretty much dialed in now. So here's the bridge pickup. Here's the bridge and the middle. And the middle by itself. And the middle and the neck. And just the neck. With the bridge so high, actually, the neck pickup is now relatively closer to the strings than that one. So I'm going to raise this one up a little bit just to compensate for that. And then I'll have to sort of split the difference on the middle one. There we go. So I'll do another sound demo then. This is the bridge pickup now after being raised. Here's the bridge and middle. Middle. Middle and neck. And the neck. Which is obviously the same as before because I didn't move that one. But the others, you probably noticed that they sounded much more louder, and a little bit. But I'm going to bring that one up because that one was more quieter than before. Yeah, they sound okay to me, sort of evened out a little bit. So I'll do some lead going back down. So starting with the neck. Neck and middle. Middle. Middle and bridge. And then bridge. There you go. But it's come out all right though, I think. You know, I'll see how that goes while I'm sort of playing around with it. it's a few more days until I've got to give it back, so there's plenty of time to get it all sort of settled in. But yeah, that's that. Hope you enjoyed that video. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you liked it, please like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And thanks for watching. Cheers.